Howdy, howdy, howdy. My name's Anachi Sasuke. Welcome back to Let's Read the Nightmare Fuel TV Tropes for the MCU. I want to try to use this to be the this week's Monday video, since I don't really feel up to trying to do house pets this week because I woke up not being able to breathe. But all this is just straight up reading instead of voice acting, but we'll see how it goes. So, we're starting with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And like I said, I think depending on how long this is, I might go ahead and do the Netflix shows. And there's only 6 episodes, but let's open the folder and see how big it gets. Not that much. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier decides to harken back to Anthony and Joe Russo's Captain America movies and succeeds in bringing unnerving moments drenched in realism. Subpages are spoilers off, you have been warned. So, there will be spoilers for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, just letting you know. Okay, Episode 1, New World Order. The Flag Smashers' operation is downplayed, yet no less terrifying demonstration of Beware the Superman. With superpowered individuals among them, was very easy for them to tear through local police and even a special ops soldier like Torres. As Sam pointed out, considering Torres got stomped in the face by a superpowered Flag Smasher, he was pretty lucky. Bucky's nightmare shows us the Winter Soldier carrying out an assassination, taking out an entire security team with terrifying efficiency, including punching through a wall and pulling a guard back through it, and crushing his target's windpipe while flatly saying "Hail Hydra." He then turns on a bystander, later revealed as Yori's son, who was shaking too hard at witnessing this to properly insert his room key, the resulting sound giving away his position, and shooting him in the head. Worse, we get to see Yori's son panic from his own perspective, making the terror that much more palpable. Episode 2, The Star-Spangled Man. Isaiah's backstory. That was only episode 2? Dang. Worked as a superhero/super soldier for the government for years, was eventually thrown in prison likely as an excuse, and experimented on for 30 years to see how he worked. He's still visibly affected by it years later, and being wrongfully accused of a crime and imprisoned isn't an entirely fictional thing. Episode 3, Power Broker. John losing his shit and screaming, "Do you know who I am?" at the guy who helped the Flag Smashers in the last episode after he spits in his face. He punches him in the stomach and looks ready to beat him to a pulp with the shield, but Lamar calms him down. It's brief, but it is indicative of something bad for the man later down the line. Then John and Lamar admits they need to go off the books in order to commit to their duty. This is an unsettling and chilling sign that despite their good intentions, they are about to become those who fight monsters from that point on. When Zemo is harassed by Selby's goons at the bar in Madripoor, he sicks Bucky on them, who was pretending to be the Winter Soldier. He absolutely destroys them, with the full Winter Soldier theme from Captain America the Winter Soldier playing in full force. He's so violent that Sam has to ask Bucky if he's okay to make sure that he's not lost in character. While making a drink for Sam in his Conrad Mack disguise, the bartender takes a live snake and cuts it open in front of everyone's eyes, before taking out a part of its guts and dropping it in Sam's drink. Understandably, Sam is utterly squicked out and disturbed at this, taking a significant amount of time to even bring the glass to his lips. When meeting Selby, Zemo offers to sell Bucky under the guise of the Winter Soldier. If this wasn't bad enough, the way Zemo touches Bucky's face as he makes the offer makes it clear that his uses as an assassin aren't the only thing for sale. Car bombing a building full of innocent people, fully transitioning the Flag Smashers from Robin Hood figures to full-blown terrorists. The fact that she looks genuinely confused at Dovik's horrified reaction makes it even worse. Episode 4, The Whole World is Watching. This episode marks the first time a Marvel Studios produced MCU work shows actual bloodshed from a human character that was a result of a kill. Not alien blood, not robot oil, genuine human blood. Worse, because of the episode's events and the gory discretion shot, most of what's shown is on Captain America's shield. During their heart-to-heart, Sam gets Carly the slip just how murderous and megalomaniacal her rationalization of her actions has become. Would you do it? Grow your army? They're killing innocent people. They're not innocent, they're roadblocks on my journey, not kill them again if I had to. Wow. Immediately after, Carly digs herself even deeper by blaming Sam for supposedly tricking her into saying something so sadistic, even though all he did was call her victims. Worse, subsequent events ensure that the point he was trying to get her to realize failed to sink in, resulting in her only getting worse with little indication that she will slow down now. The bone-chilling wham shot of John Walker holding the bloodstained shield that once represented America's hope. And before that, Nico's very brutal death at Walker's hands, which is made even worse by the fact that in a previous scene, Nico mentioned how he was a Captain America fan when he was younger. Makes you wonder if this is how the fight between Steve and Tony would have turned out if Steve had not shown restraint after the latter blew Bucky's arm off and severely crippled him. To further rub salt in the wound, Lamar was Walker's last bit of conscience that prevented him from driving off the deep end. With him dead, what's to stop him from doing much worse to Carly and the Flag Smashers other than Sam and Bucky? There's also this shot which almost makes Walker look like the Red Skull. What, really? I mean, kind of. They probably did that on purpose. And right after this comes the end credits. There's no sign of the usual jaunty Louisiana hero by Henry Jackman. Instead, it's replaced by a haunting, somber theme tune, really hammering in the ramifications of Walker's actions. The stakes have just gotten that much higher. The serum amplifies everything that is inside. Good becomes great, bad becomes worse. Long after Steve and Red Skull gave us the initial comparison, the serum's other side effect was brought back with full force. How simply realistic and quick Lamar's death is. He tries to tackle Carly in order to save John's life, but Carly punches him into a stone pillar, killing him on impact. There's no famous last words or a heartfelt speech to John before he passes. He's dead. It's an eerie reminder of how in a world full of sorcerers, super soldiers, and billionaires with advanced suits of armor, it's all too easy to die if you're a regular person. The only silver lining is that he died too quickly to suffer. Zemo might be more affable and charming in person these days, but he's not even remotely eased up on his determination to wipe out super soldiers and supers in general. And now he's gone fully rogue. Earlier on in the episode, Zemo shows his manipulative tendencies in full display by offering some local Latvian children some sweets and cash in order to get info on Carly's mother. The fact that he prefaces it with an incredibly unnerving rendition of Baba Black Sheep really doesn't ease the mind. Carly's showing how far she's willing to go by calling Sam's sister Sarah, and not only revealing she knows where she is, but also threatening her two sons as well if she doesn't convince Sam to meet with her. She subsequently claims that she would never actually harm them, but by then we've seen how prone she is to sliding down the slippery slope of morality. Episode 5, Truth. After the murder he committed in the last episode, Walker looks crazy enough to be ready to do it again. Only this time he's trying to kill Sam and Bucky when they try to take the shield from him. Walker hissing, "I am a Captain America!" before roaring while ripping off Sam's wings, and nearly killing him the same way he did Nico was terrifying, especially since Sam never took the super soldier serum. If Bucky had been half a second slower, Sam probably would have died. Although it is badass and well-deserved, the way that Sam and Bucky end up taking the shield is absolutely brutal. Realizing that Walker won't stop until he kills them both, Bucky pins down John and holds the shield-bearing arm out, and Sam uses his jetpack at full speed to break John's arm with a sickening crunch to get him to drop the shield. Walker forging his own shield after the original was confiscated from him by Sam is not just a reminder of how far the man has fallen, but how obsessed he actually is with being Captain America. He could have picked any other weapon, or just be a super soldier with super strength. But no, he has to be Captain America, even if he has to make a mocking facsimile of the symbol to do so. I somehow missed the scene where he did this. I've seen clips on Facebook of the scene where he did this, but while watching the show, I have absolutely no memory of having actually seen him do that. He just kind of showed up with it. His newfound madness mantra of "I am Captain America" makes it even worse, as he has gone from trying to earn the mantle to feeling like it's owed to him. Him using his own medals of honor as stars on the shield is just 10 kinds of twisted, narcissistic, creepy. They were already a reminder of the worst day, possibly second worst now that he's lost Lamar and his career of his life, but now he's putting them on his Captain America shield like some dark reflection of the honor, valor, and dignity the original represented. Shortly after Walker is other than honorably discharged by the US government, he and his wife are talking about what comes next. The problem is, someone comes up and joins the conversation, basically telling Walker he did the right thing even though he clearly didn't. That someone in question is Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, or for those not familiar with her civilian identity, Madame Hydra. I'm going to have to let my dad know about that, because when he was watching this show, he thought she was some sort of new Nick Fury, and then he said he saw something else that made her think not think that anymore. But now that I just found out who the hell she actually is, I'm going to tell him about that so we can both go, ooh. But anyway, take note of how she literally inserts herself between Walker and his wife in the conversation, essentially blocking out one of the few voices of reason Walker might still listen to. It brings to mind the way domestic extremists end up shutting themselves away from their loved ones thanks to the rhetoric of their enablers. Okay. So, Episode 6, One World, One People. The entire sequence where the GRC senators are kidnapped by the Flag Smashers is nothing short of terrifying. Sure, this show may not have the best opinion on the US government in the slightest, yet it's still pretty terrifying to be in that kind of situation. Especially considering that this aired only a few months after the US Capitol was attacked by a violent mob bent on overthrowing the government. Yeah, that happened. But, Sharon brutally killing Lennox by way of mercury vapors, causing his skin to bubble and boil. Holy shit. It's like the writers were hinting towards a certain reveal about her character. Walker's roaring rampage of revenge against the Flag Smashers is pretty menacing. The man is legitimately unhinged and out for blood, and it shows as he proceeds to brutally beat down and crush anyone he can get his hands on, to the point where he fights more like the Hulk in his scenes. It's a very, very good thing he came to his senses when he did. Sharon's reveal as the power broker is both a tearjerker and an example of nightmare fuel. Imagine coming across an old friend, seeing that they have changed, become more sullen and cynical, only to find out that they have become a criminal mastermind. While Sam and Bucky don't find out, it's a scary thought that they unknowingly helped one of the most dangerous crime lords on the planet get access to the CIA's top secret weaponry, also she can sell it to the highest bidders across the globe. A prison van containing the remaining Flag Smashers gets blown up, and it's quickly revealed to be orchestrated by Osnick, acting on Zemo's orders to wipe them out. We later find Zemo hearing about the news on the radio and grinning in reaction to it. Even inside a prison cell, the man is still a dangerous mastermind. He wasn't in a prison cell when that happened, was he? Or was that after the Wakandans picked him up? Oh yeah, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, at least it's bringing us right straight to it, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had, like, a lot of seasons. A lot of seasons. Ooh, this is going to be a long one. I had totally forgotten we had one more TV show that actually does matter. But I'm not sure how many of the seasons matter. Because I know that Disney wanted to cancel it a few times and other people... Or I think ABC wanted to cancel it and Marvel was like, no, it'll be important, don't worry. Alright, so, Season 1. In the climax of this episode, Coulson is forced to send Franklin Hall falling into the gravity machine in order to stop it. Later on, we see S.H.I.E.L.D. agents locking up the massive gravitonium that had powered the machine, only to see an arm reaching out from the mass. I Spy. Akela Amador's situation. Forced to watch her team die, kept in a cell at the bottom of a mineshaft for 4 years before being rescued. Only for her rescuers to implant a cybernetic eye into her head, which they use to send her missions and control her with the threat of a kill switch in the eye. It has been so long since I watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I don't remember none of that. People with eye issues should stay far, far away from this episode, particularly the scene involving Akela's surgery. Even with network TV limits, the eye scream is horrific. I'm glad I don't remember that, since I'm not good with things happening to people's eyes. The poor MI6 agent, who was also being controlled by the mysterious villains behind the bionic eyes, is frightened, oh god, as Coulson flashes his badge will stick with you for a while. His own eye scream of the kill switch being flipped, his cybernetic eye turning around inside his socket before the gory discretion shot censors the rest. The girl in the flower dress. When Chan attempts to use his fire powers without the use of his blood platelets, he scorches himself. His reaction upon first discovering this says it all. The cruel and unusual death of the centipede scientist by way of Chan roasting her with his fire powers. It has to be seen to be believed. A subtle touch. Her scream doesn't fade away, it just stops when her lungs and throat disintegrate. The second to last scene of the episode is our first glimpse of Agent Coulson as anything but his usual straight, calm, collected demeanor, as nothing short of pure fury. But not Nick Fury, just pure fury. It's more than a little jarring coming from him. Also, is it a video or is it a picture? Okay. It's a GIF! Okay, I'm probably gonna have to mark this video for having disturbing content now. Let's see. Coulson's scar. Saying he simply got shagged is a vast, vast understatement. It's obvious Loki's scepter tore half his chest apart. In Tahiti, he confirms his heart was torn in half. Well, why not just say that in the okay. The entire idea of the episode. There's an alien virus that can somehow infect humans and kill them with lightning from the inside. Simmons gets it, which nobody realizes until the bus is in the air. Simmons has a couple of hours to cure herself of a virus that isn't even terrestrial in origin, or the resulting lightning will destroy the plane and kill everyone on board. Why didn't they just land it? But okay. Blake's order to Coulson and Ward that they jettison their infected cargo, Simmons, into the ocean. Becomes a case of fridge horror when you realize the practical implications of the instruction. They're either going to have to mercy kill her first, or force her out of the cargo hold while she's still aware of what's going on. Why didn't they just land the plane? The well. The stinger includes an exchange certain to send shivers down the spine of anyone who's seen a certain other Joss Whedon show, and know its implications for Coulson. Coulson, did I fall asleep? Masseuse, only for a little while. Was it Buffy the Vampire Slayer? No, it's Dollhouse. That was a Joss Whedon show too? I feel like I should have known that, but I didn't. The episode's namesake, Ward being haunted by memories of the time his truly evil big brother dropped his little brother down a well and forced Ward to watch the kid struggling to tread water. Truly? The sociopath. The completely emotionless way that the older brother tells Grant that if he tries to help their little brother, he'll be thrown in next. Ward's bout of unstoppable rage brought on by the Berserker staff. The staff's effects on May and the hate group are nothing pleasant either. Ward pulls Randolph aside to ask how long the staff's effects on him will last and gets the response, "The strength wears off. That dark, nasty ache in the pit of your stomach, the rage in your chest that makes you feel as if your heart's about to explode. It's worse on humans, but give it a few decades, and it'll wear off too." It's disturbing in itself to hear that Ward could be dealing with unpleasant after effects for years, but it also raises questions about how much influence the staff's lingering, uncontrollable rage may have had on his later choices in the series. And since Ward asked his question out of earshot of the rest of the team, they will presumably never know that it may have influenced his actions. Repairs. A good majority of the episode, from the bus losing power and almost crashing, to Tobias stalking and imprisoning / incapacitating each member of the team in near total darkness using his incorporeal state, nearly the entire episode is a seat ripper. A particularly standout moment, the lights are mostly out and the emergency lights are blinking on and off. The camera's focused on May in the foreground. When the light blinks on, she's alone. When it blinks out and on again, the threatening silhouette of a man looms in the background. The next time the light blinks out and on again, the figure is gone. The bridge. Mike Peterson calls his son, who happily tells him that his friend is watching him. When Mike asks Ace to put her on the phone, it turns out to be Raina. His son was being watched by his aunt. We never find out what happens to her. The way Raina reacts to information about the clairvoyant, she otherwise seems to be the very image of an emotionless manipulator, yet she begs Poe for any information about the clairvoyant and seems to be overwhelmed with childlike joy when he tells her that the clairvoyant knows of her and thinks well of what she's done. The sheer number of implants one of Centipede's soldiers has, one on each forearm, one on each shoulder, and multiple smaller ones in the back. The magical place. The clairvoyant not being pleased with Edison Poe's methods and how willingly Raina agrees. The clairvoyant would like to speak to you. This is Raina. Yes, I agree. Thank you, I'll put him on. Edison Poe. Yes, I'm here. Cell phone zaps and kills him. Coulson's cries of, "Please just let me die!" as a multi-armed robot probes his fully exposed brain during his 7th operation. The fact that he had already been through 6 operations before that one, and also seeing as he was begging for them to let him die, shows just how much pain he was really in. Given the reveal that Coulson himself was the supervisor of Project Tahiti, the potential horror of his begging becomes twofold. Not only was he begging to die because he was in extreme pain and agony, but also because at that point he still remembered what happened to the previous subjects and would rather die than experience the same mental degeneration they suffered. Mike Peterson wakes up to find himself alone with his right leg partially blown up and a scarred face. Then he thinks he's left alone and sees his face in the mirror before him. A message appears in his eyesight in the manner of Aquila Amador. Seeds. The pocket-sized cryogenic gadget that can completely freeze a whole pool in a matter of seconds. And it does exactly the same to Donnie in the middle of this university lecture hall. And to top it all off, the larger version of said device can spontaneously create a small hurricane-sized superstorm with hail chunks the size of lunchboxes, and it ends up killing Seth. This episode really drives home how terrifying super tech can be when used irresponsibly. Reed Richards might not be so wrong about keeping this stuff locked away. As he is led away to the sandbox for containment, Donnie drags his index finger along the car window, creating ice in the process, and he smiles from his newfound power. Tracks. When Skye goes into the basement of Quinn's manor, it's dark and appears empty at first, but she soon finds a hyperbaric chamber that contains Mike Peterson. Quinn and a bodyguard soon arrive, guns in hand, and we soon see that Mike is not himself, and then later Skye gets shot twice by Quinn. She struggles to move and weakly says the word help before finally collapsing in a pool of her own blood. Mike's new leg attaching and extending itself is also clearly painful. Tahiti! After being told Skye is going to die, Team Coulson all go into individual blue screens of death. Except for May, who proceeds to go to Quinn's interrogation room and begins beating him senseless. There's little doubt that if Coulson and Ward hadn't walked in to stop her, May have beaten Quinn to death with her bare hands. The blue humanoid concealed in the tank that is not only revealed to be the source of the GH325 serum that was injected into Coulson and later Skye, but is also horrifically ripped in half and looks to be decomposing. Coulson's 1,000-yard stare says it all. Okay. Yep. So I guess it was a scroll or something? Were the scrolls the blue people, or were the blue people something else? I know it wasn't the things from Avatar. That Disney didn't own that yet. So, yes man, or yes men. The fact that even Nick Fury himself has gone off the grid just about the same time as Dr. Straighten. One of Lorelai's slaves strangles his own wife to death because she was making too much noise. And the newlywed man she'd taken earlier, stranding his pregnant wife in the process, ends up backhanded into his car. Rewatch bonus. Ward tries to shoot May even after Lorelai is contained. I don't remember none of that. End of the beginning. Deathlock nearly choking Agent Blake to death. Upon the agents finding Thomas Nash, the clairvoyant taunts them through a computer in a machine monotone no less, and tells Coulson that Skye will be endangered again in the near future, and he won't be able to save her this time. Poor Fitz, discovering that a friend and colleague is a double agent, and then being hunted down on an airplane where there's no escape. On a related note, seeing May go Terminator mode against him is equal parts this and awesome. The bus can be operated remotely. Simmons and Triplet are at S.H.I.E.L.D. during the events of Captain America the Winter Soldier, though mercifully they aren't at the Triskelion. Wait, so all of that happened during the first season? Huh. Turn. The slow reveal out of the shadows into the light, followed by Hydra, and the dawning realization that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by an organization that itself is the stuff of nightmares. That heart-stopping instant where it looks like Triplet is a Hydra agent, locking himself in a room with Simmons and pulling a knife out. Victoria Hand rounding up S.H.I.E.L.D. agents at the hub to determine who's with Hydra and who isn't. Fortunately, it's because she's trying to stop Hydra, despite what it seems like the episode has been leading up to. The reveal of Ward as a Hydra operative calmly shooting the agents guarding Garrett, the clairvoyant, shortly followed by Victoria Hand. There was something extremely unsettling about the S.H.I.E.L.D. emblem on the closing title card being replaced with the Hydra emblem. It's implied that after killing Fitz, Hydra was going to somehow force him to work for them against his will, after Garrett would have him shot in the kneecaps for threatening him. Did I read that wrong, or did they just type that weird? Coulson learning that he was manipulated into choosing all the other members of Team Coulson by May so that they would be capable of killing him if it turned out he came back wrong. Garrett's call of Hail Hydra and its answering echo from the off-screen firing squad facing down Coulson, May, and Fitz. After Ward kills the guards of Victoria Hand in cold blood, Garrett looks up at Ward and a slasher smile that can only be described as hellish spreads across his face. All traces of affably evil are gone in that devilish shot. Providence. Garrett casually thanks Ward for the tip-off about the cellist, maybe. It seems that Coulson's reunion with his long-lost love interest in the next episode might not be under the happiest circumstances. Any scene where Ward switches between his Hydra persona and his S.H.I.E.L.D. persona is unbearably creepy. Him calmly listing everything he did to get the team to trust him, acting like someone Coulson would want to mentor, becoming Skye's SO, saving Simmons' life, also gaining Fitz's gratitude in the process, and seducing May. Garrett's method for getting Ward back into character? Beating the crap out of him until he believes his performance. It helps that Ward is still half smiling, though it's more like grimacing, through a mouthful of bloody teeth for much of the beating. Every scene where Skye is unknowingly feeding Hydra information through Ward up to and including his arrival in Providence, since the plan from there is to find out as much as he can, kidnap Skye for her password, and kill the rest of the team. The only light in the darkness. Poor Audrey, having a mentally unhinged stalker with superpowers. It also goes the other way too, since from what is described, said stalker is in constant excruciating agony and the only form of relief he can find is in the music of a woman who is threatened by his very presence. It almost makes his death feel like a mercy kill. Blackout in general is pretty creepy, what with the way the lights go out when he passes by them and his unflinching walk. Skye finding Koenig's body and discovering that Ward is a Hydra infiltrator. Her reaction says it all. The entire scene is nightmare fuel that feels like something out of a slasher movie. We have Ward looking around for her, calling out her name, all while she is clearly putting everything together. We know that if they find her, she'll be killed, or at the very least captured and forced to activate the drive. The fact that after they find her, said character is suddenly very convincingly friendly, and makes a believable excuse for why Skye can't contact the team or Koenig, only makes things creepier. Ward's revelation, which from the flashback to his childhood in earlier episodes, might be the only truth he tells Skye in the whole episode, that not only did his older brother force him to torture his younger brother, but his parents were even worse. In the flashback we see, Ward's older brother threw the younger sibling in a well, and then made Ward watch a little boy desperately tread water and scream for help as he fought to keep from drowning. The above implies Ward did not try to sneak a rescue, he was made to throw him in there, possibly to his death. How the hell were Ward's parents even worse? Considering that he considered Garrett and being stranded in the woods alone for 6 months the better option? A lot worse. Nothing personal. May digs up a flash drive. Oh, this is really long. May digs up a flash drive containing the details on the Tahiti project, and at the end of the episode shows it to Coulson. The drive contains one video. It's Coulson himself revealed to be the director of the project. He advises Director Fury to terminate the Tahiti project and threatens resignation over it. What's more, Coulson reveals that there were test subjects for the project, all of whom quickly deteriorated after the treatment, and while memory replacement staved off the meltdown, it did so inconsistently. And now this treatment has been given to both Coulson and, incompletely, Skye. The device Deathlock uses on Ward, stopping his heart until Skye caved and spilled the drive's encryption. Just the idea of such a thing is bad enough. When it's revealed how Ward killed Koenig, strangled him with a garrote with enough force to not only lift the lighter's body off the floor, but slice into his neck and obliterate his trachea. Skye floating out of the free-falling Lola after not having enough time to put on her seatbelt, and then the malfunctioning thrusters flip them upside down. The whole team is facing jail time if they're caught for their continued affiliation with S.H.I.E.L.D. and refusal to turn themselves in. Not only is it quite undeserved and basically an attempt by Glen Talbott to extract more information they don't possess, but fridge horror kicks into the thought of any of these people, but particularly non-combatants like Fitzsimmons and Skye, in jail alongside genuinely dangerous criminals. When Ward finally snaps at Skye on the bus, it's genuinely frightening, and as we get a glimpse of just how psychotic he truly is. Ragtag! Garrett's condition. The reveal of how far back it goes, and subsequently how long the Centipede project has likely been in the works. The experience of having the cybernetics in one's body, a large chunk of his torso, shocked by an EMP. The immediate physical reaction to Raina's makeshift attempt to replicate GH325 being ejected into his cybernetics. Fitz and Simmons being jettisoned from the bus into the ocean. This is further amplified by them being conspicuously absent from the next episode previews, while the more obvious survival of the rest of the team is spoiled right then and there. Coulson and the others in Cuba get ambushed by Kaminsky and the other Hydra agents in the dark. Hydra agents in the dark. We finally get more information about Skye's past. The village she was found in was destroyed, the whole population massacred by a pair of monsters who were trying to get to her as a baby. Those monsters were Skye's parents. An added dose courtesy of fridge horror. We still don't know how Skye's parents came to be those monsters. If there's a genetic component, then there's no guarantee that Skye won't one day become one herself. In other words, how much of the survivor's description was metaphor, they're monsters because they slaughtered a village, or literal, they're from another planet/dimension. Beginning of the end. Garrett punching through a US Marine Corps general, pulling out one of his ribs, and stabbing him with it. Ward and May's climactic fight is one of the nastiest brawls in the entire MCU so far. It involves multiple uses of power tools. She nails his foot to the floor several times. Ward may have had it coming, but ow. Unlike with Skye, who Ward genuinely cared for in his own dysfunctional way, and Fitz and Simmons, who Ward felt conflicted about killing, Ward seems to enjoy hurting May. His taunts are incredibly creepy. Against all odds, you and your best friend survive being dumped into the ocean from a plane, but the airtight, bulletproof, space-worthy box the two of you were dumped in has sunk to the ocean floor. Just when you resign yourself to starvation, or more likely suffocation, against all odds, the both of you hit on a plan to break out of the box and get to the surface. But just before the plan is put into motion, when it's too late to back out, your best friend reveals that the plan was only ever going to be for one person, and that person is you, and they're going to stay behind so as to not hamper your escape attempt. And you help them put that plan together, and you never even twigged once. No wonder all Simmons can say is no when Fitz breaks it to her. And then you somehow manage to take your friend up to the surface with you and miraculously snag a rescue, but they sustain brain damage from the lack of oxygen, and the best that can be said of them is that they're alive. Cybertech's incentives program basically consists of holding loved ones hostage in order to compel individuals to work as handlers of the Centipede soldiers. And the construction zone Ward and May fight through makes it clear Cybertech was planning to expand it significantly. Coulson getting up in the middle of the night and scrawling the same alien language that drove Garrett insane all over the wall. Somehow his tranquil demeanor while doing this makes it even creepier. This is especially the case if you realize that the writing is the same one found on the chalkboard by Ward and I Spy. Gets worse when you listen to the creepy music in the epilogue. When Raina tracks down Sky's father, his hand is dripping with something. What was he doing before she came in? Coulson and May confronting Ward as he's being taken into custody by the military. On the surface, this seems like a major victory for Team Coulson, complete with the reason you suck speech. However, the expression on Ward's face is very unsettling, implying he may escape and seek revenge in the future. Because Garrett has both the GH-325 and the Centipede serum in his system, he can take quite a lot of punishment before finally going down. But his appearance grows progressively more disturbing with each injury. After being shot several times by Nick Fury, his mouth becomes bloodied. His face then becomes covered in blood after Mike blasts him with a missile, which is made even worse when Mike stomps on him. Finally, after thought to be dead, he goes through a painful transformation into a cyborg a la Darth Vader, at which point he's instantly vaporized by Coulson. Garrett himself throughout the entire episode. He grows very erratic in a short amount of time, to the point where even Ward, Raina, and Quinn are frightened of him. He wasn't a paragon of sanity before, but he starts to kill on a whim, rants about seeing the universe, and generally gives off the impression of being unstoppable, all while wearing a big slasher smile. Bill Paxton does a good job of being both entertaining and terrifying at the same time. Let's see. Well, we're at season 2 now. Shadows. Fitz is alive, walking around and apparently getting better. Yay! Except he's actually getting worse, and he's begun hallucinating Simmons, who left because she thought it would help Fitz get better. In a moment that's particularly dark in hindsight, Fitz is afraid he's hallucinating and asks Simmons if she's seeing the same thing he is, to which she probably responds that she is and that he needn't worry. On this occasion it is really happening, confirmed by May, who sees it too, but Fitz being reassured that he's not hallucinating by his own hallucination speaks volumes about his grip on reality. As Coulson hints at the end of the episode, he doesn't even realize he's suffering a slow decline either, instead believing he's getting better with Simmons' help. Hartley, after being ambushed by Creel, grabs the obelisk in an attempt to use it against him. It ends up attaching itself to her and starts slowly killing her to the point that Hunter ultimately has to slice her forearm off with a knife. Ward hasn't been doing well since the end of season 1, to say the least. Heavy is the head. I know how to read, I promise. Since the revelation in the premiere that she's just Fitz's hallucination, every scene with Simmons is more than a little eerie. The waitress who was serving Creel's table at the diner turning to stone after accidentally touching Creel, who had absorbed the obelisk. Coulson's hypergraphia attacks occur regularly. May knows about it, she helps him cover it up, and she keeps a gun nearby if she needs to kill him. Edges into slight tearjerker territory when Coulson is being stubborn about the dates and admitting how tired he is with holding the attacks off. Making friends and influencing people. Hydra's methods of brainwashing high-value targets such as Agent 33, which looks a lot like something from A Clockwork Orange. All the while, Whitehall calmly delivers a chilling monologue. Fitz decreasing the oxygen in Ward's prison so he can experience for himself what happened to Fritz's brain. Donnie freezing a Hydra agent, then shoving said agent to the floor on the way out, causing him to shatter rather gruesomely. The ending scene with Whitehall and Bakshi discussing Simmons is started with the line, "We'll make her comply," played as a voiceover over a shot of Simmons standing in an elevator with an unsettlingly blank look on her face. Simmons' bright and cheerful morning routine doesn't seem to be this until she goes into the building and you see the Hydra logo on the wall. Face my enemy. The fact that Hydra has developed technology that lets their agents impersonate whoever they want, and all they need is some DNA and a voice sample. Which begs the question of how they managed to get General Talbot's DNA, with the implication that the United States Army isn't as Hydra-proof as they claim to be. Dr. Whitehall corners Raina and implants a device on her that lets him torture her at will until she hands over the obelisk. The fact that this is the first time we've actually seen Raina show genuine fear says a lot about Whitehall. The fact that there's someone else in the world who may have been injected with GH325, carving alien messages into random objects. The revelation of how fragile the new shield can be struck home from here. May gets knocked out long enough for a blood sample to be taken, thus allowing Agent 33 to impersonate her. This almost led to Director Coulson being captured and the bus blowing up with his inner circle inside it. Without them, S.H.I.E.L.D. would have collapsed and Hydra would have had one less thorn in its side. A hen in the wolf house. The Doctor's revealed to have a hair-trigger temper on par with the Hulk's, which even he is similarly terrified of. Simmons being revealed as a mole within Hydra, and her walking into the lab to find everyone in the room staring at her. Raina, of all people, freaking out and in tears for many of her scenes, considering that for the whole of Season 1, she was barely ruffled at any point, even when she was being beaten and arrested by S.H.I.E.L.D. It really underscores how scary Whitehall and the Doctor are, and how terrifying it must be to be caught between them. A fractured house. Hydra has managed to manufacture flying discs which replicate the effects of the Obelisk/Diviner that would quickly reduce their enemies to dust. Chew on that for a while. Ward revealing to Skye that the reason why her father slaughtered everyone in town when she was an infant, they were all Hydra agents who had killed his wife. Ward and his senator brother about their family, who's telling the real truth. So it's a well now. Tim DeKay's calm delivery of the line is blood-chilling. Whatever the Ward family history may be, the idea of being handed back over to Christian clearly serves as some high-quality nightmare fuel for Grant. Grant Ward, one of Hydra's agents within S.H.I.E.L.D., escapes during the transfer to the US government custody, and the last shot we saw of him was killing the soldiers who were watching him. The last shot we have of the episode shows a never-before-seen man going to a tattoo parlor for some ink. What does he want? A new addition to the alien writing sprawling across his torso, identical to the stuff Garrett and Coulson had been carving. The writing on the wall. I wonder if that comes up, because I don't think I saw myself any further than the beginning of Season 3, because of reasons. So I don't know if this comes up or not. The carvings are becoming more and more frequent for Coulson, to the point that rather than being twice a month, he carves every night. This whole episode has Coulson acting like a drug addict, needing to carve more and more to satisfy himself, practically lashing out whenever hindered, and even locking Skye in Ward's prison in order to get answers about the carvings from Thompson. The guy from the wham shot from last episode, turns out he's Sebastian Derrick, an early Tahiti patient treated with the same GH325 serum as Skye, Coulson, and Garrett. Oh yeah, and he used to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. Black Ops assassin. Fun. Coulson experiencing flashbacks of Project Tahiti and other participants, 235 induced sanity, I think that was supposed to be 325, sanity slippage while hooked up to Raina's memory machine. He watches them shift from happy and peaceful to deranged and tormented. The only way to help them at that point was to torture them even more to rewrite their memories. At the end, Coulson sees himself superimposed on one of them. We know that Coulson ended up needing memory replacement too. What's the chance that Coulson didn't go insane before that? He probably was one of those screaming deranged things, as Dr. Straighton referred to him in the magical place, being hauled away to be operated on. The entire premise of the episode is that there's a killer who carved an alien symbol onto his victim's body until they died out of pain. How does got a PG rating is a wonder to critics as well as audiences. The things we bury. The secret behind Whitehall's youth. He stole the organs from an obelisk-resistant woman who remained young and unchanged for years. Viewers get to see graphic details of the Hydra scientist drawing blood and fluids as well as cutting her open. Even worse, the woman was Skye's mother, hence why the Doctor slaughtered all those Hydra members in the immediate area and secretly harbored so much hatred for Whitehall. The full truth of the Ward household is revealed, and it ain't pretty. Grant and Christian were both physically abused by their mother, while their father turned a blind eye to it. Their other brother Thomas was the apple of their mother's eye, and Christian wanted to hurt him to get back at her, but he didn't have the stomach for it, hence why he made Grant do it. Grant finally gets his brother to admit it. He then kills him and their parents, and does it in a way to make it look like a murder-suicide. Throughout the episode, the way Christian tries to manipulate Grant is so textbook abusive it's enough to make anyone a little queasy. And how do we know that it's the truth? Christian only admits it under a lot of pressure. What if it's not true and he only admitted it because he was hoping it would get him out of the situation? For all we know, Grant is making it all up and he just wants an excuse for why he's the way he is. Ward has rejoined Hydra, and since he knows all the strengths and weaknesses of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Coulson's team like family. If you read the truth about the Ward household, then you know what Grant does to family. Though it might not be too bad of a nightmare considering how he arranged FaceTime with Coulson for Bakshi and noted he will be leaving further presence for S.H.I.E.L.D. Ward clearly has an ulterior agenda not in line with Hydra. Coulson's meeting with the doctor at the Australian satellite facility. After Triplet is shot by a Hydra agent to protect Fitz while he was working on the transceiver, the doctor, who Coulson hasn't seen in person yet, pretends to be a facility employee with medical training who can help Trip. The doctor helpfully works on saving Trip before maybe not so unintentionally referring to Coulson as Phil. He's rather unimpressed when Coulson pulls a gun on him by rather cheerfully stating that he's actually severed one of Trip's arteries and if he lets go, Trip will die, and as a result forces Coulson and Fitz to throw their guns over to him. During the ensuing confrontation, the doctor veers between affable and enraged, especially when his berserk button of calling his daughter Sky is pressed. Coulson's barely contained fury is very visible, especially when the doctor manages to get away by providing Coulson with the anticoagulants he'll need to save Trip's life while he makes his exit. I'm going to find you again, and when I do, we're going to finish this talk. Let's see. The doctor. I look forward to it. I don't remember their voices either. Obviously, even if I did who knows if I could even do them. Ye who enter here. Mac, having one of the Kree symbols painfully embedded on his hand by the temple's defenses. Kree, that's it, not Skrull. Kree. The Skrull or the green-looking dudes. Then being revealed to have undergone some sort of demonic possession and attacking the team. He even manages to briefly overpower Bobby and shrug off 4 Icer shots from Coulson. What they become. There is a second obelisk. It begins reacting after the obelisk in the city activates, and it intrigues a man with literally no eyes. He doesn't even have eye sockets, just skin where his eyes should be. Remember how a few episodes ago a Hydra goon was killed after being frozen by Donnie Gill and then shattered? Essentially the same thing now happens to Trip after being hit with the Terrigen crystal shards. Terrigen crystal shards. I guess that's okay. That makes sense. While they were later revealed to be okay, Rain and Sky's Terrigenesis at first appeared to be both of them undergoing petrification. Chloe Bennett's very convincing and equally disturbing scream of fear that accompanies it doesn't help. Aftershocks. Imagine suddenly losing your sight and then randomly teleporting through a room and into its walls. Then imagine doing that for 14 hours. Poor Gordon must have been out of his mind with terror. The horrifying way transformed Reyna kills a S.H.I.E.L.D. scientist. And not to mention we get several shots of her transformed state. That we mentioned she's in pain all the time. Sky discovers that she's a gifted while she's in quarantine, i.e. a glass cage, and listening to her friends develop fantastic racism. All she can do is wait for them to find out, and when they do, she won't be able to do anything about it. Suddenly, Cal's concerns about her safety on Team Coulson are not so unreasonable. Near the end of the episode, we see a device hidden within Coulson's office on a model of Lola, no less, scanning for something, until it was revealed to be Fury's toolbox. Then we see Bobby and Mac revealed to be the ones looking for the toolbox. Bobby says she will be making contact soon. Who you really are. There are 4 more diviners out there somewhere, and we don't know if Hydra has them or where they're at. Bobby and Mac aren't working for Hydra, but if not Hydra, then just what the hell are they planning? Mac chokes Lance to the point of unconsciousness when he asks too many questions about the above. One of us. The reveal that Sky's attempts at controlling her powers just caused them to go inward, nearly shattering her bones. Angar the Screamer. When we first see him, he's wearing a creepy Hannibal Lecter-esque mask. He gets even scarier when the mask comes off. In a subtle but terrifying bit of CGI, he unhinges his jaw like a snake before letting out a blood-curdling scream that drops everyone like flies. And then the birds start falling. Agent 33's real face is heavily burned, worse so than the mask was. Without it, she almost looks like Two-Face. It's disturbing to see how casually Ward and Agent 33 talked about how Ward killed the doctor who fixed Agent 33's nanomask because he knows too much. Afterlife. For all their talk of transparency and openness, the real S.H.I.E.L.D. is just as paranoid and full of fantastic racism as Hydra has been shown to be. Gonzalez insistently refers to Skye as it, or something, and ignores Bobby's points that Skye was acting in self-defense. They also immediately conclude that Coulson was building an army of superhumans on Fury's orders on the basis of him having Skye on the team. These are supposed to be the good guys. Worse, he's nothing but peaches and cream when he talks to Fitz and Simmons. They don't fall for it. Lai Shi is pretty cultish. Communal lifestyle, social isolation, members who join for the promise of ascension, but only a few can be chosen, cryptically named leadership, and a Big Brother is watching omnipresent character, along with a prison with no windows where a guy can smash things and scream his lungs out for days and nobody will notice a thing. Melinda. Eva Belyakov's daughter, Katya, who is essentially a humanoid abomination in the form of a little girl. Ava Akers' nightmarish performance just sells it. The worst thing about Katya is that she's not malicious or evil in any way. Even in her insanity, she's truly innocent and unaware about how terrifying her gift is. I like their pain. Take my hand, I need a new mother. Jiaying implies she was alive and conscious when her husband found her vivisected body in the woods, and while he stitched her body back together again. Yeah. The dirty half-dozen. Simmons' completely nonchalant attitude in her plan to hit Ward with one of the splinter bombs. She's going down a bad road. Even worse, when she kills Bakshi instead, and is afterward asked where he is, she just smiles and tells he didn't make it. We also get to see the downside of Raina's gift. Imagine being able to see exactly what Ultron will do to the world and being completely helpless to stop it. The S.H.I.E.L.D. break-in, at least from Hydra's perspective. They knew S.H.I.E.L.D. had highly skilled operatives when they signed up to fight S.H.I.E.L.D., but they didn't know S.H.I.E.L.D. had an enhanced. Imagine what it would have been like when Skye got there. She cleared out a room in seconds with her powers, and that was one of the tamer uses of her powers. We briefly see a Hydra surgeon casually cuts Lincoln's unconscious body with a scalpel as if he was a lamb. A lamb? Scars. It's implied that while being butchered by Whitehall, Jiaying was conscious enough to know that her organs were put in jars. Let that sink in for a moment. Ward and Kara were able to take out Bobby and planning to kill her. The borderline slasher smile they share at the end really sells it. There's something extremely unsettling about the Kree monolith. A simple stone pillar with seemingly random holes in the surface changing into a liquid form and back again is somehow very eerie in its unnaturalness. It almost seems like it was alive somehow. SOS. Skye's mother in human ability is sucking the life out of her hosts. The audience sees it several times throughout the final episode. Considering how old Jiaying is, she has possibly been doing this for centuries. Cal said in the past one of the elders would sacrifice themselves every few decades so they could continue to have her guidance. What's worse, she even uses her draining powers on her own daughter, complete with Skye/Daisy begging her mother to stop as her skin and eyes begin to pale. As she is draining the life essence, I always believed the reason I endured all that torture and pain was for you, that you were my true gift, but you're not. This is. Don't do this. You've made your choice. I'm sorry. Jiaying killing Raina. Even worse, Skye and Daisy witnessed the whole thing happen right in front of her. There's the lovely close-up of Ward shoving the needles under Bobby's nails. Bobby's entire ordeal is just pure nightmare fuel. The torture itself she's trained to overcome, and she's even alright when they're seconds away from killing her. Except they catch on to that, and so decide to lure Hunter there and kill him in front of her. Bobby then has to stew in that for hours, set up in a terrifyingly simple trap that will give her a fully uninhibited view of Hunter getting shot and killed just a few feet away. Her clearly visible panic as she hears his coming closer is one of the most heart-wrenching scenes in the entire goddamn series. Cal's complete transformation. Mr. Hyde is terrifying. The Inhumans invading the S.H.I.E.L.D. aircraft carrier, killing innocent agents and to take the Kree weapon. The whole scene was stuff of nightmare since we know the variety of abilities the Inhumans could do. Coulson, Mac, and Fitz fighting Gordon, who can teleport anywhere he likes. How did it end? Gordon gets a steel pipe stuck in his stomach. After catching a drop Terrigen crystal to save everyone on the Iliad, Coulson begins to turn to stone. We are then treated to the very horrifying visual of Mac cutting off Coulson's left hand with an axe to save his life. Coulson's scream of pain is the stuff of nightmares. How does Cal kill his wife, Jiaying? He gives her a neck snap, followed by a crushing bear hug which probably crushed her insides to pulp. The epilogue has its own horrors. Ward has gathered up the remnants of Hydra and is intent on forming his own team of Hydra agents to oppose S.H.I.E.L.D. The box of Terrigen Crystal Sky has pushed into the ocean with her own powers had broken open, infecting the wildlife in the area and the sea, mainly fishes. The fishes were then caught and processed into fish oil, which is then sold at supermarkets and other shops in the world. What happens when those Terrigen Crystal infected fish were consumed by humans? How many people are either going to develop superpowers or be petrified in the stone? Remember the Kree weapon, which was sealed within the S.H.I.E.L.D. aircraft carrier? After Fitz accidentally unlocked the weapon's containment box and left, the Kree weapon turned into its liquid form, swallowed Simmons whole while she was still screaming, and went back into its original form in a matter of seconds. This leaves Simmons' fate in doubt until the next season. Okay, so I think that's the last thing I had seen of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. before I was no longer able to watch more of it? I think. I'm not sure. But the thing with the the Terrigen crystals, because I know that that's the overarching plot of the Marvel Avengers video game that came out a while back, and I'm wondering if there were, like, they said that people would turn to stone and then pop out with superpowers, but I wonder if they're going to bring up the Kree at all in that game, or if they're just settling for it was created by humans, even though it's called the same thing. I don't know. I've got to play more of it and I'll find out. Anyway, Season 3. How many seasons were there? Oh my god. I don't want to just cut it in half in the middle of this show, but... Okay, laws of nature. Poor Joey has not had a good first day as an Inhuman. He takes a completely innocuous fish oil pill, and suddenly everything around him melts. And now there are people who are authorized to use lethal force on him, and yeah, he gets rescued, but now he can't go home again. Coulson watching a projection of the spread of fish oil Terrigen that looks to be based on a combination of water currents and shipping schedules. The simulation predicts global saturation in 17 months, 22 days. Now look back at the chaos of the opening sequence and ponder the fact that it was caused by one frightened and confused Inhuman. Again, the Monolith. The Monolith is a wormhole created by the Kree. When inactive, it is a solid block of stone, but when active, it is an undulating mass capable of capturing life forms and transporting them elsewhere in space. Fitz calmly grabbing a shotgun, heading into the Monolith room, shooting out the lock, and entering the containment unit, all screams of a potential suicide by Monolith. Then he completely and utterly loses his shit when it fails to do anything. Imagine heading into the den of the monster that killed your best friend, expecting it to do the same to you, and it doesn't. That hurts so much more than mere death. Gemma Simmons, after being swallowed by the Monolith. Alone, hurt, hunted on the other side of the universe and seemingly for weeks or months. What has she had to do to survive for so long? If the Monolith's portal abilities are triggered by the Inhuman gene, then that makes Simmons' inhumanity very likely. Going on her dim view of Inhumans from the second half of Season 2, this idea alone will probably be in-universe nightmare fuel for Simmons. The ending does not help in the slightest. Instead of the rousing and badass S.H.I.E.L.D. theme over the credits, there's just the mournful wind of an alien planet moaning endlessly. The alien, Lash, that's been hunting Inhumans and killing them. Sky and Lincoln barely faze the guy. Mac empties his gun into his gut and doesn't slow him down. He has a nasty way of killing. Okay, I definitely didn't see any of that. Purpose in the machine. The history of the Monolith. A flashback at the start of the episode shows a person being randomly selected to be swallowed up by the Monolith. It's implied that this has happened to multiple people. Ward's new vision for Hydra is already proving to be effective. In his first appearance, we see him speeding around a parking garage in a sports car, spouting a social Darwinist lecture to his second-in-command. He believes that Hydra's leadership has grown too complacent and reliant on their money and privilege, and that to be a true member, one has to earn it. So what do his followers do? They stand completely still at each of the pillars, fully ready to die for Ward if he crashes into them. Oh, and the guy he's talking about is clinging to the hood the entire time. Likewise, his quick molding of Werner von Strucker, son of the man himself, into a potential Hydra leader. Ward successfully uses the same sink-or-swim mentor tactics that Garrett used on him, and at the end of the episode, we get the wham shot of Werner getting close to Andrew Garner by enrolling in his class. Simmons catapult Nightmare after her rescue from the Monolith. It's clear that she's going to have a lot of issues resulting from her stay on the alien planet. The fact that she kept a weapon on her the entire time on the trip home, the move to the containment room, and falling to sleep. She's been so traumatized that even with the rest of Team Coulson around her, even with Fitz right next to her, she still didn't feel safe. Devils you know. The shot of Lash's shadow shrinking to a more normal human shape. The unstoppable, implacable serial killer who shows up out of nowhere and vanishes just as quickly can also hide as an ordinary human being with absolutely no one the wiser. Have fun sleeping. 4,722 hours. The fact that the alien planet Simmons and Will were stranded on is apparently alive. It's actively malevolent towards Gemma and Will. And their one attempt to actively escape, Gemma figures out that the next portal will open in the no-fly zone over a canyon that Will has visited and charted to be 30 meters wide. After days of trekking, they get there and find the canyon has increased to more than 100 meters wide with a dead drop in the middle. The conclusion they both reach? The planet doesn't want them to leave. Ever. The reveal later that the planet was never alive can either make this easier to swallow or harder. On one hand, we now know what it is, and that takes the edge off of what could otherwise be a case of nothing is scarier. On the other hand, the explanation for exactly how it does what it does is chilling, especially when you consider the Hive doesn't have the power to directly drive people insane. Will's astronaut friend came after him simply because he went mad from the isolation. It, the unknown shape-shifting monster that roams the planet's surface, killing anyone unfortunate enough to cross its path. The form it takes near the end of the episode, the corpse of one of the astronauts who died on Will's mission, looks freaking terrifying. Imagine living the way Will has, stranded for 14 years with no hope of rescue, barely seeing the sun, knowing you are in part responsible for the deaths of 3 men, and their corpses may rise out of the sands of the planet to kill you when you exit your home. Imagine facing the abandoned city with the corpses of explorers past alone, like the protagonist of a Lovecraft story. Among Us hide. Hunter's taken off the case to kill Ward. Though his desperation to do something is played for laughs, it's becoming quickly apparent that his solution to all problems is violence and death, making one wonder if this is the start of a decline. The reveal of Andrew Garner as Lash, the inhuman that's been killing every member of his species that he can get his hands on. May's tear-stricken, speechless, horrified reaction mirrors what the audience is going through, especially with the fact that he's in their base with at least 3 Inhumans within arm's reach. The flashback of Andrew transforming into Lash before going to town on Warner's goons. No wonder Warner himself was so terrified when he bolted out of the store. Chaos Theory. The mook horror show Lash pulls on damn near everyone in the episode. He rivals the Hulk on invulnerability, can smash you into a wall with a single blow, and even his human form can't be killed with mere guns, so how the hell can you beat him? Lash's reasoning behind killing Inhumans. He only kills ones that will turn evil and is killing them before it happens. Recall back to what Steve said in Age of Ultron regarding ending the fight before it starts. It really does appear that good becomes great, bad becomes worse. Lash's attentions aside, look at the people he kills. He killed humans that got in the way, he killed newly turned Inhumans that had the potential for darkness, which amounts to all of them, and he has killed long-term Inhumans that could use their powers for evil purposes. Now, you're probably thinking he's a hypocrite for saying this since he kills people under a just cause, but look at Joey. He was happy about his newfound control over his powers, and he could just as easily tear down a building in a few minutes as well as build one in an hour. His excitement seems to be the trigger for Lash to kill him, but Andrew was hesitant as it's possible to talk him out of it. The Stinger. Rosalind seems to be taking her orders from Hydra, and is trying to deliver Coulson to them. Meanwhile, she is developing a romance with him and trying to lower his guard, and her legitimate work entails putting Inhumans in stasis for now unknown purposes for Hydra. Many heads, one tail. Gideon Malik becomes a source of this when it is finally revealed where his allegiances truly lie. He has at his fingertips the ATCU, which Rosalind was completely unaware of until this episode, and the Order of the Monolith, which was in reality an older incarnation of Hydra. His mission is to bring to Earth an ancient master that the Order has been serving for centuries through sacrifices, and to have an army of Inhumans under Malik waiting on the other side. And that master he serves? The thing on the planet that's been terrorizing Will for over 14 years and nearly killed Simmons. An Inhuman so powerful and evil that it had to be banished to the other side of the galaxy to be stopped. And Gideon wants to bring it back here. Ward, not to be outdone by Malik, has his share of horrifying moments in this episode. First, he engages in a bit of cold-blooded torture on Malik's men, with implements such as a kitchen knife and a blowtorch. Then, on his way to Germany, he blows a hole in the side of a full airplane after warning the passengers, much to their terror, that they're about to experience some turbulence and will likely freeze to death. Then, at the end of the episode, he starts torturing Andrew with mustard gas in hopes of drawing out Lash. Dang. Mavis. That sounds vaguely familiar. How it works. It smells blood and moves to the injured party, then when the person dies, it crawls into their dead body and reanimates it. It is just a worm-like creature that controls the dead body. You're not Will? No. Will died saving Gemma from me. And how do we learn this? Because whatever wounded Will's leg caused the flesh to be stripped to the bone. Okay, fire truck. By the end of the episode, it has now taken over Ward's body as its new host, and we see the creature wriggling in his forehead. Yeah. When Grant Ward and his Hydra soldiers say a giant Hydra symbol sculpture, Ward, who never truly believed in Hydra's goals, becomes a true believer and for the first time says, "Hail Hydra." During the battle, Simmons is cornered by Hydra and has to make a difficult choice. Either free Andrew or possibly get killed. In the end, she does wind up freeing Andrew, who unleashes Lash with some Hydra soldiers. This has direct consequences because later in the episode, all the Inhumans that Hydra had captured at their base are killed by Lash. May sees their body parts lying around. Coulson's execution of Ward. As Ward is lying on the ground incapacitated, Coulson angrily glares down at Ward and presses his robotic hand down on his chest. As Ward helplessly struggles, Coulson presses his hand down further, crushing the Hydra agent's chest. There is a sharp sound as his ribcage collapses. It's so brutal that Fitz is visibly stunned for the rest of the scene. It was explicitly named as an Inhuman, which means that a human being was turned into that thing. Its true identity. It's Hive. Things just got a little darker. I don't know who Hive is. Okay. I still don't really know who Hive is, but that... Bouncing back. It/Hive in Ward's body. Its movements and expressions are creepily stilted and lifeless as it speaks in a creepy monotone about its former glory and utters ominous vows of a return to power upon regaining its former strength. Brett Dalton's performance really sells the fact that the person this body used to be is gone. It really says something when you can make eating a chicken leg with a glassy hollow stare look bone-chilling. It doesn't help that the chicken leg is raw, as is all the other food that Hydra brings to it. Ward's body is in a horrible state. It's emaciated, horribly pale, could easily pass as a zombie, and still has Coulson's handprint embedded in its chest. The way It/Hive's hand starts to disintegrate as it promises to make a believer out of Guerra. Whatever that means, it can't be good. Lucio, aka the Medusa Eyes human. One glance and Bobby and Hunter both drop to the ground, petrified and helpless. The way their skin loses all color and their eyes are wide open makes it hard to tell at a glance if they're even still alive. At the end of the episode, he's in the custody of Hydra. The Inside Man. Hive finally manages to completely heal. How, you ask? By taking 5 living humans and stripping them to the bone so it can use their flesh to repair its borrowed body. All that's left are bloody, smoking skeletons, while Hive is covered with and standing in a puddle of what used to be people. Even better, the camera lingers on it as it rises, in such a way that it looks like it's staring directly at the audience. Flashback to Mavis showing Ward's dying point of view after Coulson crushes his chest and leaves for the portal. The last thing Grant Ward ever saw is a thing slithering over his face. Watchdogs. It's a brief mention, but it was stated that there was staff at the ATCU building that gets imploded with nitramine, whatever that is. Considering how small the ball of rubble is compared to the original building, have fun thinking what the experience must have been like for anyone inside. The Watchdogs themselves are this, a hate group bent on the annihilation of everyone even remotely alien from the planet. And now that Gideon Mallet/Hydra is funding them, they've gone from being an online anti-alien group to a full-blown domestic terrorist with enough weaponry to start a nuclear war. And because of the mask they wear, they could literally be anyone. The look of barely concealed disgust that Guerra gives Blake. You know that once the Watchdogs have served their purpose, whatever Guerra plans for their leader is not going to be pretty. Seeing Daisy briefly become the Unfettered is terrifying, more so if you don't know her, and even more so if you're on the receiving end. While the Watchdogs are clearly insane, they are partially right. The Inhumans and others are dangerous. There's a reason the Sokovia Accords are an important issue. We get to see Hive devour people on screen, and it's just as horrifying as you might imagine. Malik crushes a man's head, again, on screen. More mild than most examples, but the Terrigen has permeated the ecosystem enough that the nation Inhumans can undergo Terrigenesis just by being out in the rain. Dang. Paradise Lost. Coulson being hunted over his killing Ward and Mabeth to the point that he crushes a pipe upon remembering such a horrific execution. Or haunted over it. Though Fitz tries to reassure him that Ward deserves to die, it doesn't make Coulson proud of the way he killed him. He also feels that Ward was the true victor in their final confrontation, and acknowledges that it's his fault that Hive found a new body to return to Earth. Hive speaking to Malik as his brother Nathaniel, who he sacrificed to save his own skin. Hive teaches then Malik the meaning of sacrifice by killing his daughter in front of him. The team. This episode brings the Thing levels of paranoia fuel, thanks to the Hive finally using his mind control ability on one of the Secret Warriors. The lack of trust and mounting tension throughout the entire episode makes Daisy being revealed as brainwashed and crazy even more terrifying. After getting an eyeful of Hive dust, her face momentarily seems to take on an expression of horror before the brainwashing sets in. The final scene establishes that while the other Secret Warriors might be dangerous, Daisy is the one who really earns the title of Person of Mass Destruction. She brings down the entire hangar and does unknown amounts of damage to the rest of the base in less than a minute. She didn't even seem to be putting any particular effort into it. We also get to see how dangerous she is on a personal level. Remember Malik's vision of Hive inflicting his usual body horror on him? Nope! That was Daisy concentrating her earth-shattering power so intensely that his flesh melted off. Simmons' post-mortem examination of Lucio is shown in nauseatingly graphic detail, including peeling back his skin and cutting the top off of his skull to see his infected brain underneath. The Singularity. Hive's influence over the Inhumans in its way is very reminiscent of a cult. Both Daisy and Alicia talk about how wonderful it feels to be around Hive and how they want Lincoln to join them. Its influence even pushes them to do things they would otherwise never do. Alicia kills her own clones, and Daisy threatens to kill Fitz. According to Simmons' research, Hive's defection is more akin to addiction than brainwashing. Hive's spores affect the dopamine levels of his victims' brains, essentially drugging them into absolute loyalty towards Hive. The test of the eye enhancement tech that Fitzsimmons had to perform to get in to see Dr. Radcliffe, as saw in the eyes of a living specimen. Simmons goes so far as to put a needle of anesthetic in the patient's pupil before exposing the test as fake. The patient, Radcliffe himself, then gets up and casually takes the needle out of his own eye. Hive taking on Will's persona while talking to Simmons. Exactly why it does this is unclear, but it's extremely disturbing. Before that, there's the fact that Simmons is staring down the thing that spent 6 months hurting her. She's utterly terrified to the point of tears of fear, and who can blame her? Hive's apparent master plan. Replicate the Kree experiments that created the Inhumans to turn everyone on Earth into an Inhuman. What's that supposed to do for him? Unless he does eat Inhumans to get stronger, doesn't he? I don't know. Failed experiments. The results of the first Radcliffe's first experiment with Inhumans. The poor test subjects are liquefied, screaming in agony the whole time. All of this takes place on screen. The Kree Reapers that land in the town Hydra controls. In their hunt for Inhumans, they slaughter multiple people, including Alicia, armed with nothing more than their blades. In turn, they no-sell every physical blow thrown at them. They can't tell if they're killing Hydra agents or everything they come across. No wonder Hive was terrified of these guys. Emancipation. The artificial Inhumans that the Watchdogs are turned into using Daisy's blood are alien-looking humanoid abominations that cannot speak and rely on primitive instinct. While Dr. Radcliffe considers it a failure, Hive considers it good enough to subject the entire world to. Absolution/Ascension. Hive has previously been shown to shrug off gunshots, a grenade, and an RPG, and has been able to survive Lincoln's electrical blast and even Lash's energy blast with so much as a nick in his suit. Here, Daisy attacks him with her powers, stabs him repeatedly with a combat knife, and even breaks his spine and arms with her abilities, and he just regenerates. Nothing they do to him personally does more than mildly inconvenience him. Knowing all this, the humanity of millennia ago had every right to be afraid of a being who was virtually immortal. Hive's experience with the memory machine is essentially a schizophrenic freak out turned up to 11. Imagine a normal person who has multiple personality disorder, and they lose track of which personality is the right one. Now imagine instead of personalities, you had entire lives, and you are reincarnated with the memories of the previous lives still intact. For millennia. And imagine each and every one coming to the surface simultaneously, all believing that they are the current life. Hundreds of lives all interacting in your mind at once with an eon of memories all pushed to the surface. It's more scary to think that Hive wasn't reduced to a huddled ball of insanity by this tactic. Even worse when you think about exactly what must be in those memories. Every single one of his hosts, including his original body, must have had horrifying experiences and unpleasant deaths all crammed into his head. Imagine dying hundreds of times over, none in ways anyone would want to go. I forgot that they put Ghost Rider in this show. I don't know why they put Ghost Rider in this show, but it sure did happen. Ghost Rider himself is the stuff of nightmares. The way the skin on Robbie's head slowly burns off to reveal this flaming skull is particularly unsettling. If his appearance isn't enough, his power certainly is. Once he reveals his flaming skull, he absolutely curb stops Daisy, and was clearly more than capable of killing her if he hadn't decided she didn't deserve it. Ghost Rider running down the Aryan criminals in the opening. They're absolutely terrified to the point that they fire an RPG to try and stop him. It doesn't work, and the Rider's car just bursts into hellfire in response. We don't see exactly what Ghost Rider does to one of the Aryans he kills, but whatever he did, it sent a lot of blood flying onto the car door and another criminal's face. Mac is reading off the crime report later. The gory discretion shot in the opener was most likely the Aryan getting his head crushed, but he got off easy compared to his brother who was subjected to a reverse ass shove. Though it cuts off, the intent is clear. Mac's spine pulled out of his... The dispassionate way that Robbie executes the captive Aryan is bone-chilling. I don't deserve to die! Everyone says that. They say when the Rider burns you, he burns your soul. The ghost in the box and what it does to the Chinese gangsters who find it. Instant hate plagued with zombie hallucinations. At the end of the episode, it's attached itself to May. Does the Ghost Rider happen for the whole season? Or is he just sort of there for one episode for no real reason and then gone? Why did they introduce Ghost Rider through Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And then canceled Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. before he came up? I don't know. Meet the new boss. The episode opens like something out of Supernatural, with a little boy seeing the ghost from last time. He tells his dad, who at first doesn't believe him, until the ghost reappears and flies through his chest. He then begins seeing the same things as the Chinese gangsters in May. His son approaches and says, "Daddy, I'm scared!" But his father hears it in a deep, echoey voice while his son's eyes become black and dead things. It turns out there are more spirits like the woman. There were apparently scientists researching an artifact, or they were apparently... Oh! Okay, so not only did WandaVision have the Darkhold, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. also had the Darkhold. But once again, I'm pretty sure Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has already been cancelled, but that now means we have two different TV shows in the MCU where the Darkhold has come up. Interesting. We don't see how they were killed by their experiment, but it must have been very violent because they appear to be covered in blood and fresh wounds, as opposed to flesh wounds. Or it might be flesh wounds. Maybe they wrote it wrong. That book, The Darkhold, it's a Doctor Strange artifact, and a very bad one. Also some fridge horror. The line in questions mentions a Darkhold, not the. As in, there's more than one of those out there. Okay, so there's two different Darkholds, and Wanda has one, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has another. In the previous episode, we saw May had been affected by the Ghost Woman. We expect her to turn herself in for testing or decontamination or something. She doesn't, but it's partially justified by the fact that she's seeing everyone's faces as being those of death. She doesn't think she can trust any of them and ironically believes herself to be the only sane man, since she's normally the stoic, calm, and in control. Watching her freak out and believe that all her fellow S.H.I.E.L.D. agents have turned into monsters is deeply unsettling. She goes to talk to the Chinese gang leader, believing he's sane as well, except he starts rambling and then beating his head on the door until it bleeds. Arguably, May has it worse than the viewer. We can see he's clearly insane by now, but May looks at him and sees that he's driven to suicide past the despair event horizon. And it's what awaits her if she doesn't find a way to stop everyone from turning into monsters. Oh wait, the Ghost Rider, of course! Daisy makes the mistake of threatening his brother, so he lights up a wrench and goes for her head. He ends the fight pretty quickly too, though it takes a second hit this time, and after we're not sure what he's going to do with her. And then he transforms again, and this time it's a bit more horrific. The lighting is odder, and the effect is faster. And once he's transformed, he literally burns a person's soul. Guess the alien was right. The blackouts cause a lot of this. Daisy and Robbie talk about how looting and rioting typically take place during blackouts because people feel emboldened. In other words, 7 major cities with the lack of inhibition of the internet. Robbie specifically talks about his fear that his wheelchair-bound little brother will be stuck in a bad part of town. The new villain, Senator Nadir, is looking like the Unfettered. 7 major cities blacked out so the watchdogs can zero in on the humans while she fans the flames of human hatred. Imagine what she's going to do. Imagining what she's going to do next is even scarier. It's pretty disturbing and depressing how quickly Yo-Yo's so-called friends at the party turn on her when they find out she's the Inhuman the watchdogs are looking for. Why did it not open these episodes? Okay, I guess there's just nothing on those. The Good Samaritan. Robbie's first transformation into Ghost Rider is lifted straight from the comics. His screaming mixed with the slow, obviously painful transformation is enough to give anyone shudders. Likewise, Johnny Blaze's appearance as the Rider is a bit jarring for anyone familiar with the previous incarnations of the film. Go ahead, take a look. So does Robbie happen before Johnny Blaze, or does Johnny Blaze just kind of show up? Is this how he looks in the show, or how he looks in the movie? By the end of the episode, Eli has succeeded with his plan and gained godlike powers, and Coulson, Fitz, and Robbie are nowhere to be seen. Deals with our devils. Just the thought of being unharmed only to find out you are now a ghost and no one can hear or even see you. May send Simmons to a classified mission. The problem is that it's classified even to him, and upon trying to get Simmons back, the Senator abruptly hangs up on him. Imagine being in Mace's shoes, realizing he just sent Simmons off with no backup and no idea where she is. Even worse is Fitz overhears the whole thing and is not only pissed, but terrified for Simmons' safety. Nadir's brother was conscious and aware of everything around him when he was stuck in Terrigenesis. He could hear and remember Simmons introducing herself. Eli's powers, being able to create carbon from effectively air, including the air inside the human body. It turns out that the ghosts are being dragged into hell slowly. Lucy and the others were stuck in limbo too far up for hell to affect them, while Coulson and company are too far down to affect their environment, and slowly sink into the depths with each passing moment. From what we hear from the Rider, hell ain't pretty. Mac getting taken over by the Ghost Rider. It fully suppresses his consciousness, leaving him unable to account for anything he does for hours. During that time, he runs away from S.H.I.E.L.D., attacks the Chinese gangsters, and even kills a few of them. The experience brings a light to all the darkness inside him and leaves him broken. Or brings to light all the darkness inside and leaves him broken. Not to mention the fact that the Rider considered the situation where he fully suppressed Mac to be not ideal. Makes you wonder just what the Rider considers an ideal host. And then there's the shot we get of the actual spirit of vengeance outside of a host. When Radcliffe opens the Darkhold, the camera is looking up at him. This is the perspective of the book. The book is reading its reader. What is the famous phrase? And if you gaze for too long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you. We also see his reaction. At first it's confusion, followed by shock, then mounting horror. What is this book? The Laws of Inferno Dynamics. Agent Nathanson finds something horrifying at Radcliffe's house and Ada sees it with him. She strokes his cheek while he is stunned with fear and says, "I'm sorry, I know how this feels." And she snaps his freaking neck. No emotion or anything. Then we see what Nathanson found. A bloody and unconscious May. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why androids were banned. What? To make matters worse, another May, a life model decoy who no one's recognized as such, not even her, is back at the base drinking whiskey with Coulson. Broken promises. The face Ida makes as she explains how the Darkhold showed her how to feel. You can see the madness in her eyes. The biggest kicker? It was all an act, as Radcliffe was corrupted by the Darkhold and is now seeking it for himself to achieve immortality. How about some paranoia fuel for you? Life model decoys are so convincing that LMD May doesn't know she's an android. Dang. While having trouble interrogating the sniper who tried to kill May, Simmons comes up with an idea to make him talk. Claiming to have gotten quite a few skills at torturing people while with Hydra, Simmons decides to show the guy what happened to the last person who refused to answer her questions. I had a severed head and a cooler filled with ice, complete with some fake blood on the mouth to make it seem all the more real. The guy starts talking. Towards the end of the episode, Fitz downloads Ida's data to investigate what made her turn on S.H.I.E.L.D. What truly makes the scene terrifying is that Ida's head is partially activated and talks to Fitz while he's doing this. Yeah. Okay, my files haven't freaked out yet. Let's see. Let's take a look at Ratcliffe and Ida's entire treatment of the real May, locking her into a Lotus Eater machine, running her through simulation after simulation to try and keep her calm and contained. The capper is putting her back into the Bahrain mission, allowing May to save Kadia this time around, and all this is done with the idea that they are helping May. The treatment of May is less a doctor working with a patient and more of a researcher playing with a test animal. Hot potato soup! After the watchdogs start strong-arming Ratcliffe and Ida, Ratcliffe gives Ada a nod, and she not only overpowers 2 watchdogs, but she also kills one by punching through his stomach. What makes it creepier is that when Ratcliffe tells her to stand down, she just sits down, smiling politely with her hands still soaked in blood. Just before Mac is about to use his shotgun axe on LMD Ratcliffe, it asked why, if Mac doesn't consider it a living thing, he felt the need to turn him on before killing it. Mac's response? He wants to hear a robot scream. Boom! Doubles as paranoia fuel, but after her brother was outed as an Inhuman, the deer was paranoid she was an Inhuman as well, or at least a carrier. When Shockley crushes the Terrigen, she panics as the mist passes around her, only to see Shockley become cocooned. Shockley's powers. He can manipulate the kinetic energy of his cells at an atomic level, pushing them to the point where his body becomes combustible and highly explosive. He then reforms from a single cell, albeit without any clothes, to do it again. As Mace points out, he is now an undetectable suicide bomber who can walk away. Worst part, the anti-Inhuman cell shield has on board the Zephyr cannot contain his powers. Something that was designed to contain the Hulk cannot contain Shockley. After the explosion, we see Shockley reform. First it's a gas, then it forms into a skeleton, we're seeing that a lot lately. Before it forms meat, muscle tissue, and finally Shockley. It's like Hive stripping a body from last season in reverse. The man behind the shield. The ending of the episode. Coulson, Daisy, Mac, and Mace have all been replaced by LMDs, and only Fitz and Simmons are aware of it. And then they make it 5 as the Coulson LMD reactivates the May LMD. Self-control. The basic premise of the episode. The base is heavily infiltrated with android doubles of most of the team, leaving the remainder who are still human wondering who's left that they can trust. Worse, at the end of the last episode, everyone, viewers included, thought that Fitz and Simmons were the only 2 humans left of the main cast. Turns out that Fitz was an LMD too, and Daisy was the other human remaining. Imagine that in the middle of a nightmare body double scenario, you discover that the one person you thought hadn't been replaced was a body double too. Daisy and Simmons jump into their counterparts' identities in the framework, but the Gemma Simmons of the framework is already dead. So what happened to Gemma when she logged in? If you could fix one regret in your life, what would it be, and who would you be if you did? While Coulson would be a teacher spreading fear of Inhumans, Fitz would be rich and dating someone else because Simmons died, and May would be working for Hydra. The fact that Ivanov's been reduced to a severed head and a glass container who's now controlling an LMD of himself courtesy of Ida. Even after the truth about Fitz is revealed, Simmons struggles with the possibility that she could also be an LMD programmed to think she's the real thing. The sight of the LMDs of Team Coulson trying to kill the ones who are opposing them. The fact that they're LMDs does nothing to lessen the horror of watching this family try to kill each other. Standout points include LMD Coulson coldly pointing a gun at LMD May right before she could blow them both up was highly disturbing, especially considering how much their human counterparts care about each other, made worse by the fact that both have recently realized that they love each other. She may be more than capable of emotion, but he certainly wasn't. LMD Fitz brutally stabbing Gemma while switching between human and robot personalities, followed by Gemma repeatedly stabbing LMD Fitz. After seeing how far one of them will go for the other, Gemma dragging Fitz from the bottom of the sea, Fitz jumping through a portal to find Gemma, it's incredibly horrifying to see them attacking each other. Gemma is left visibly heart-traumatized by the event. When Daisy finds her, Gemma keeps saying it wasn't him in a way that it's clear she's trying to reassure herself of this fact. The LMDs of Coulson and Max shooting Daisy after she defeats LMD Mace. Daisy has spent her life searching for her family, and now people who look like the men she views as a father and brother are trying to kill her. For some reason, the LMDs are also trying to carry out the Watchdog's mission of genocide against the Inhumans, now using the Inhumans' trust of S.H.I.E.L.D. to get close to them by sending multiple LMDs of Daisy to execute simultaneously. For extra horror, it was LMD Mac that tried to lead Yo-Yo into the trap. What if? The Framework world. All of it is pure nightmare fuel. Here's a highlight reel. Hydra's in control, and it is utterly normal. Coulson being totally on board with the Hydra party line and Inhuman hate. Phil Coulson. The Avengers and the Battle of New York aren't mentioned. Clearly the Chitauri and Loki didn't win, but we don't know what did happen, especially as Coulson was the one whose death saved the team. Nothing about previous S.H.I.E.L.D. agents or the Avengers are mentioned, leaving the fates of Fury, Hill, Han, Bobby, Clint, and his family, Steve, Tony, Bruce, Natasha, and the Maximoff twins up in the air. The fate of the S.H.I.E.L.D. Science/Tech Academy does not bode well for them. Fridge horror starts kicking in when you realize Bahrain happened prior to the Battle of New York, and the Cambridge incident happened within a short time after that. So it's possible that Hydra was in control when that would have occurred, thus no Avengers at all. Keeping in mind, the first third or so of Thor happens on Asgard, i.e. out of Hydra control. Once Thor arrives on Earth, he interacts with A. S.H.I.E.L.D. and B. astrophysicist Jane Foster. In this reality, Hydra has replaced S.H.I.E.L.D. and probably keeps a close eye on an astrophysicist who hypothesizes dimension/space travel. So who did Thor meet and interact with on Earth? And how does this play into Loki's plans? Is he openly ruling Asgard? Did he ever meet Thanos? Even more fridge horror. Consider how the Nazis were into Norse mythology, and consider Thor's personality when he arrived on Earth before his character development. A few flattering words, some ego-stroking, and Hydra would have a physical god at their beck and call. Was Steve Rogers ever rescued? Is he still trapped, or did Hydra just find and kill him? All of the anti-Inhuman hate and reference to Nazism. May, trying to do a good thing accidentally if indirectly, causes the end of the world as we know it. Fitz of all people is the dreaded mad scientist who performs cold-blooded torture on Inhumans. Special mention to poor Simmons, who wakes up in the framework in an unmarked mass grave. Her clothes are still stained with the blood of her counterpart's death, and she looks into the hole she crawled out of to see another corpse rotted to bones. In-universe, Daisy is understandably scared when she realizes that in the framework she and Ward remain a couple. She even cringes when he hugged her from behind. Identity and change. If you thought the framework world was horrible last week, just wait. Mac lives in constant fear that Hydra will come after his daughter and himself. When you remember that Mac joined S.H.I.E.L.D. before the Kadia incident occurred, 2002 versus 2008, it's entirely possible he's hiding from the government because they know he's ex-S.H.I.E.L.D. May appears to have lost her ability to empathize. She all but states that she would hurt a child and believes no one is innocent. She attacks Mac in front of Hope so that he'll cooperate, then uses Mac to trick Daisy/Skye to revealing her true allegiance. And once she catches Skye, May allows her men to beat the shit out of her. Fitz is the worst of all. He's cold, emotionless, a shell of his former self. A sadist who's almost as scary as Whitehall. The look in his eyes when he says, "I know exactly who I am," and then shoots Agnes in cold blood. It's equal parts heartbreaking and terrifying. You can see that the kind and gentle man Gemma Simmons loved no longer exists. To top it off, at the end of the episode he's just finished torturing Radcliffe and promises to do the same to Skye/Daisy. She tries to protest the usual "you don't want to do this shit." Fitz looks right at the camera and says, "Yeah, I do." While she's the big bad and obviously evil, it's hard to not sympathize with Madam Hydra. She's a sentient being, and yet she was forced by her programming to be subservient to Radcliffe. He kept her locked in a closet and forced to do menial tasks. He referred to her as less than human. Every part of her motive rant is true, and the thought of being in her position, It's also terrifying just to hear the rage in her voice. There's a reason mad is a synonym for insane. So was Ida Madam Hydra the whole time? Because then that means that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has a whole bunch of heavy implications for a lot of the MCU right now, and none of it seems to have come up yet. A bit less than the previous two episodes, but still, the framework world delivers. Remember that creepy scene in the Red Room? It was empty when Peggy and the Howling Commandos entered. Now we get to see it in its full glory, upgraded with Bakshi's compliance training from Season 2, stocked full of children to make them comply with Hydra's party line. Even May is horrified. All the Madam's men. We've heard snippets about how bad a father Alistair Fitz was to Leopold, but we finally get to see firsthand what he is like. The man embodies tranquil fury, and anyone who cannot do the same is seen as weak. Furthermore, it appears that in order to instill this personality into Leo, he had to beat the poor guy, as evidence when Leo snaps at him after he reports a failed raid on Daisy and May. Worse is that Leo confided in Radcliffe about his father, whom the latter reveals to him while being interrogated. Radcliffe reveals to Alistair that in the other world, Alistair Fitz is a drunkard wife-beater who disappeared from his son's life because he couldn't be bothered with him. He remarks that he was a failure there and is still a failure now to his son as he can't catch a single escaped fugitive. The resulting no holds barred beatdown from Alistair furthers the fact that this guy, the man who raised Leopold Fitz in the framework, is one messed up son of a bitch. Farewell, cruel world! The framework has brought some terrifying things over the course of the season, but few of those can compare to the sight of Leopold Fitz threatening to murder Gemma Simmons after she killed his father. To add some extra horror, he actually did kneecap her just a few feet from the back door. Thank God Radcliffe intervened when he did. Imagine being in Mac's shoes for a minute, having to choose between the framework and reality. On the one hand, the world is being ravaged by terrorists and is constantly at war, and you serve as a part of the group that protects the people, but you have your girlfriend by you, or the world is being controlled by a terrorist organization hunting anyone who speaks out against them. You have thrown your lot in with the freedom fighters and are now an enemy of the state, but you have your bright little girl along for the ride. Which is worse? The return. Ida's psychotic break after Fitz tells her he's in love with Gemma, not her. Ida feels intense emotions and lacks any emotional maturity due to just recently gaining a human body, so she's become an unstable yandere with an apocalyptic grudge against humanity. Seeing Ida lose her temper in general is terrifying. Even as Madame Hydra in the framework, her reaction to seeing Radcliffe hitting her berserk button was restraint the tranquil fury, which makes her sudden screaming fit all the more jarring. At one point, it seems like Ida will sleep with one of the Ivanov bots. Ida mounts him, only to bash the back of his head into the floor several times. Ida/Ophelia now has the overwhelming desire to control the world by force, and she has the means and powers to do so. An angry, vengeful being with near unlimited and wide-ranging powers. Gorton's teleportation, Lincoln's electric powers, Ava Belyakov's strength, and Jia Yang's healing factor, among others, access to a supernatural artifact that can reshape the world, and an ally who can produce multiple LMDs of himself, are all ingredients for a terrifying foe as demonstrated by her rampage in this episode. Yo-Yo waking up without her powers and strapped to an operating table inside a wrecked building in the framework. That scream. World's End. Ghost Rider emotes for the first time in this series when Ida escapes him by giving a primal scream of rage. The slow deletion of the framework. While it might not seem important, seeing people, apparently living and breathing people, disappear, while those that remain are left confused by their absence, and you can't exactly distract themselves with their stuff because that's disappearing too. And it doesn't matter if you run, no matter where you go in the world itself is fading. It culminates in Hope disappearing from Mac's arms, leaving him broken. Deserved or not, watching Ghost Rider roast Ida alive is pretty horrifying. For all the months of his disappearance, Robbie was in another dimension where the Rider was in full control of his body, while he was stuck in an "and I must scream" situation. Daisy sums it up as terrible, painful, and lonely. He also says this is only one of several alternate dimensions in the MCU that could legitimately qualify as our concept of hell. Ida's yandere side is creepy. Just a picture. Okay, it's a whole website that didn't actually bring us to the picture. Season 5. How much is left of this? Is it just Season 5? I can't even shrink it to see. Whew. Is this going to end up having 5 episodes? I don't know, man, because Daredevil had 2 seasons. And I don't know how much of Daredevil would have Nightmare Fuel. I know there's probably a bunch of fridge horror and, Jessica Jones. But anyway, Season 5! The first half hour or so was like a survival horror movie as Coulson, Daisy, May, Mac, Gemma, and Yo-Yo find themselves in this derelict portion of an old space station crawling with monsters. And then they reach civilization, which turns out to be just as dangerous. The fact that when May teleported in, she has a pipe through her leg, narrowly missing being a victim of Telefrag. The team finally figures out where they are and when they are. Decades into a future in which the Earth has been destroyed and the surviving humans are all enslaved by the Kree. Gemma's attempt to help a wounded man results in her being captured and enslaved by the Kree, who put something in her ear that allows them to disable her hearing on a whim. The renewal, full stop. Way back in Season 2, the Kree Vintak warned that Daisy's powers could potentially grow to a point that she might be able to shatter continents. If Deke is to be believed, he was underselling it. Supposedly, Daisy shattered the planet. A life spent. Apparently, any human who turns 18 goes through the Terrigenesis, where they are basically sold into slavery, and that's if they're lucky enough to have a useful power. If not, they are simply slaughtered in an exhibition match against the champion of the buyer. Abby, the young girl Simmons helps mentor, is at the beginning getting brutally curb stomped. Simmons is only able to watch as she watches this young girl fight for her life and can do nothing. The way she wins is almost as horrible. She phases her arm insubstantial and shoves it into her opponent's chest. Then she turns it solid again. Ouch. We finally see what the punishment is for breaking the rules of the Kree, getting sent to the remains of Earth, which is a hellhole devoid of any life but roaches. Rewind. Little Robbie Hinton, the daughter of Charles Hinton, has the power of precognition. While Raina had her physical beauty taken, and Charles could no longer touch people, Robin sees all of time at once. Given she was 4 or 5 when she underwent Terrigenesis, this has effectively made her non-verbal, and she instead communicates through her drawings. According to her mother, her mind is scattered through the past, present, and future, confusing at best and scary at worst. Although this later gets subverted when she seems to grow up into a well-spoken old lady, and one of the leaders on the destroyed Earth. General Hale is an authority figure who basically ignores basic human rights, plans to kidnap gifted children at best, and kills her subordinates in cold blood. Basically, she is the very thing Steve Rogers fears in Captain America Civil War. Together or not at all. We finally see a Vrelnexian/Roach in the flesh, and it looks horrifying. It looks like the spawn of a xenomorph with the body of a panther. It doesn't make it any less awesome, though. By now, about half of the named non-SHIELD cast has been killed, all violently. At least one is stabbed in the back like Coulson, and gets a lingering shot and some blood on their chest/mouth. Apparently, Coulson's death in Avengers was to have that, and it was cut out since it would have given the movie an R rating. The last day. Cassius decides that he's been too lenient with the humans in the lighthouse and decides to punish them after Team Coulson escapes in the trawler. How? By driving the Vrelnexians to the floor where the humans live. When Mac, Yo-Yo, and Flint arrive, the floor is literally covered in bodies and we're treated to the sounds of people screaming as the Vrelnexians hunt them down. Even in her dreams, Robin sees the past and future, people hurting, people dying, catastrophes. Her powers are literal nightmare fuel. Best laid plans. For several episodes now, it has been made clear that Cassius intends to destroy the lighthouse when he leaves. This episode reveals how he intends to do that in one of the most horrifying ways possible. The Kree have attached bombs to the O2 tanks within the lighthouse. Not only would these cause massive explosions, but would also set the entire lighthouse's oxygen supply on fire, which would in turn burn everyone to death. What exactly is the purpose of Season 5? The other 4 seasons seem to have an effect on the MCU, but Season 5 just kinda seems to be happening. The effects of the odium are truly terrifying. It is a drug used as a last resort by Kree warriors to allow them to die with glory by sending them into a berserker rage, making them incapable of feeling pain and greatly enhancing their strength. It is also implied to eventually kill the user. Cassius force feeds odium to Tai, his inhuman trainer, and then later ingests the rest of it himself during a final showdown with Mac. In both cases, ingesting the odium causes black fluid to spill from the user's mouth and eyes, making Tai and Cassius look rather monstrous. The fact that future Elena has been killed and resurrected multiple times by the Kree over the course of several decades. They kill her when they don't need her and resurrect her when they do. And to top it all off, they've cut off both her arms above the elbow, leaving her with useless stumps. All the comforts of home. Team Coulson has finally returned to the past, but it looks like the future they're trying to prevent is already starting to come true. When Noah reveals a light emanating from the sky, Fitzsimmons take a closer look at the light and learn it's a Kree beacon, similar to the one used by Hive to summon the Reapers in failed experiments. Hale activated it to draw Team Coulson out. It's entirely possible that the beacon is what alerted Cassius' father to Earth in the first place. So not only is Earth about to get a visit from Thanos, but there may be a confederacy of Kree warlords and their armies on their way as well. During the fight at the lab, Ruby uses her blades to slice off both of Elena's arms at the elbows, where, just like future Elena, after Max attempts to console her that they're going to change the future, they just experience a huge portent of what's to come. Also, the liberal amount of blood flow from Elena's elbows is truly horrifying. It makes all the previous several limbs in the MCU look tame by comparison. The Kree beacon was also a plan B, but not to track Team Coulson to their base. It was a bomb intended to kill them. And it exploded right next to the white monolith, showing how it was destroyed. Pretty much everything about Ruby, daughter of General Hale. She's not some bratty teenage daughter who is skipping school and idolizes Daddy Johnson. She is a government-trained assassin who is obsessed with killing Quake and gladly mutilated Elena just to draw Daisy out. Also, while her room looks like a normal room in a house, it's actually in a secret military bunker with reinforced steel doors to keep her locked inside. What the hell is this girl? The fact that Hale and her daughter just want to kill Coulson and his team. No arrest, no interrogation, no manipulation, they just want to outright kill them. The real deal. Blowing up the 3 monoliths in the previous episode caused a rift in space-time to form, with a reality bleed from what Fitz dubs a fear dimension. A person's deepest fears can manifest into physical form and attack them. It's a dimension literally made from nightmare fuel. Given the appearances of a Kree warrior, Lash, a LMD of Gemma, and Hive, these manifestations are fully physical and capable of killing anyone who gets too close. The reveal of just what the deal with Ghost Rider cost Coulson. It burned out all of the G325 in his body, causing the fatal injuries Coulson suffered in the Avengers to decay. According to Gemma's analysis, Coulson's tissue didn't just turn necrotic, it has been necrotic for years. The manifestation of Coulson's deepest fear. That he wasn't revived by Tahiti, but is still on the operating table after Loki stabbed him. Wait, so does that mean that Coulson was briefly Ghost Rider, or did something else happen? I guess that wasn't nightmare fuel, so it's not in here. Framework Fitz has returned as apparently as a result of the fear dimension. Everyone, especially Fitz and Simmons, are incredibly unnerved by this. His plan to capture Daisy and take out her chip so that she can use her powers to compress the gravitomium into the device needed to seal the rift is this, as it involves his surgically removing it without even giving Daisy any proper anesthesia. What makes it worse is the reveal that Framework Fitz was never there. It was all Fitz himself. Yes, kind and gentle Fitz, the love of Simmons' life, kidnapped and basically tortured one of his friends simply because he felt it was the best option to close the terror. Even after the terror is closed and Fitz is imprisoned, he tells Gemma that even after basically destroying his friendship with Daisy, he still feels it was all the right thing to do. Hydra has returned and General Hale's working for them. And who was the overseeing this revived Hydra? None other than the Confederacy, the Kree alliance led by Cassius's father. Not only was this guy responsible for the dystopian conditions of the lighthouse, it looks like he's responsible for the alien invasion that precipitated the destruction of Earth. It looks like we found the big bad of Season 5. Rise and shine. What happened to Talbot in the 6 months he's been Hale's prisoner? Ruby has completely broken him, to the point that it's not sure what was a result of brain damage or a result of Ruby's interrogation. The result of Creel touching the gravitomium. He learns that it is not just an element, it's alive. When Franklin Hall was absorbed by the gravitonium, it took his memories and sentience. Creel says that he can hear 2 voices in there, and at the end of the episode reveals who the other voice is. It's Ian Quinn, who was absorbed all those years ago after escaping when Raina made some sort of deal with Hall. The honeymoon. Reality ensues hard for Yo-Yo when she tries to use her powers for the first time since getting prosthetic arms, and learns the hard way that her prosthetics aren't built to be subjected to high speeds. Glen Talbott is revealed to be a sleeper agent for the Confederacy. Now, isn't Talbot the general that deals with Hulk most of the time? If I'm remembering right. All roads lead. The family-unfriendly death of Werner von Strucker, with Ruby accidentally crushing his head like a beer can after getting infused with gravitomium. You can see his blood splattering on the floor behind Ruby after his corpse falls. Coulson tries to defuse the hostage situation with Talbot by using his own Hydra trigger phrase on him. Granted, he was trying to save a little girl, but dropping another layer of mind control on a man with an already seriously broken mental state, that is cold. Option 2. The Rimarath are like something out of a survival horror movie as they lope around the lighthouse, slaughtering anyone who gets in their way. As an added bonus, their presence causes lights to go out and electronics to stop working. The Mook horror show of Talbot now pumped full of gravitonium, killing every single Rimarath. The one who will save us all. Talbot's slow descent into madness as the gravitonium corrupts his mind is quite unsettling. You can see the descent happening from hero to anti-hero to Knight Templar, and it is accompanied with some gruesome visuals of him compacting people into fiery, fleshy basketballs. The force of gravity. Talbot's reunion with his family is unsettling to watch. They know something's not right, and it's clear that he's going to snap at any moment, and he does when his wife mentions that S.H.I.E.L.D. called. Before they are interrupted, Talbot is talking about the only way he'd ever trust his wife again is if she joined him. The way he says it heavily implies he's intending to absorb her the same way he did Creel, right in front of their son. The end. Talbot's final descent into madness. He threatens a young child's mother to make her tell him where he can get more gravitomium. Then he lands a massive spaceship on top of several buildings, completely destroying the top few floors, and at the end he's fully willing to destroy the planet in his insane desire to become powerful enough to protect it from all threats. Seriously, what exactly was the point of Season 5 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Like, every other season seemed like it meant something for the MCU, but Season 5 just happened. Does Season 6 also just happen, or does it do things? Because if General Talbot is who I think it is, how are they going to explain him doing this shit in other MCU movies when he shows up? If I'm thinking of the right guy. Anyway, Season 6. Sarge in general is an incredibly chilling villain, if only because of how unsettling it is to see a man who looks and sounds exactly like the Coulson we all know and love display the exact same kind of affable, yet sociopathic and ruthless personality as Ward. Code Yellow. This season has given us some new creative and terrifying ways to die, but this episode, showing what the alien parasite does to its victims, sets new records in family unfriendly death and takes us from sci-fi with a few scary moments to outright horror. Poor Keller starts jutting black crystals from his body as his limbs are stretched apart. Skin can be seen clinging to the crystals that have overextended his limbs. We're not talking Reed Richards type limb extreming. The crystal expands beyond the bounds of its host, and there's not enough flesh to go around, showing agonizing and graphic ripping and tearing. See the final result here! Might as well, the video already had a gif of a lady on fire. That is... Okay, it looks like I clicked the wrong link, or is it just going to do it again? Ah! There's the horrifying! Why was there an extra link for Smuckbait, though? That's just dumb. Anyway, it gets better! As we learn more about over the next handful of episodes, when the crystal reaches another surface, that surface grows more crystals. You can see a little of it in that image. The new grows on the walls and floor. And the crystals from there cause more. The blue dagger things that are kryptonite to the parasites were preventing it from fully growing. From 2 victims, you can get enough rapidly growing razor-sharp crystals to infect it to at least fill a plane. So far, touching the crystal isn't enough to have it grow from you like an infection victim, but it will go straight through your body like a hot knife through butter. If you don't stop it with a dagger early, as in within the first 5 seconds or so, remaining anywhere near a certain death by impalement. Also, they gain the energy to do this by feeding on the life force of the victim. Planets have life force too, accessible by ley lines. Enough of the Shrike gather at the right places, and soon your whole planet is being torn to shreds. Giant crystals growths ripping their way out as easily as they do with red shirts. The best proof of their horrifying nature is that having seen them at work on too many planets, to the point that he'd do literally anything to stop their spread, is what has made Sarge ruthless enough to earn an entry on this page. So is Sarge actually Coulson, or is he just some other person that just looks like him? Is he another dimension Coulson? Inescapable. Fitz and Simmons are put into a virtual mind prison by the Chronicoms, which causes them to eventually confront their respective dark sides. Not just Leopold, aka the Doctor, but also a Nightmare Simmons created from all the negative emotions that Gemma has been suppressing her whole life. I thought Fitz was in prison. Like, actual prison. How did he get back? They end up captured by each other's dark side, leading to horrific torture scenes as Leopold puts Gemma in a machine to drain her mind, and Nightmare Simmons cuts Fitz's heart out with a bone knife. Nightmare Simmons in general proves to be every bit as scary as Leopold, if not more so. things veer straight into horror movie territory whenever she appears. She looks like something that crawled out of a nightmare, and Elizabeth Henstridge's performance is nothing short of terrifying. Enoch points out that keeping Fitzsimmons in the mine prison may end up killing them. Atara makes it clear that she doesn't care. Collision Course Part 1. Sarge is willing to set off a nuke with a 200-mile blast radius, regardless of how many innocent civilians are caught in that area, if it means destroying Izil and the Shrike. He even leaves Snowflake, who'd been nothing but loyal to him, behind on the truck as it barrels towards the Crystalline Tower. The fact that Izil, the woman who rescued Fitzsimmons from certain death on Kitson, is actually the one responsible for unleashing the Shrike upon the galaxy. Izil is capable of body surfing, which is not only a major case of paranoia fuel, but is also played for horror. She makes May shoot Sarge, makes Piper shoot herself in the hand, makes Max start to strangle Deke, and ultimately makes Davis jump to his death. And to make things worse, by the end of the episode she's now possessing Yo-Yo, and makes a point of mentioning how she can now kill people before they can blink. From the ashes. Last episode seemed very triumphant, with Sarge promising to stop Izil and starting to unlock his powers. This episode makes it clear that those powers are not under his control. The alien being inside him, Pachacutic, is a raging monster barely controlled by what remains of Coulson's personality. He's strong enough to bend steel and knock down walls, and he wants out. The sign! Agent May and Sarge go into the ancient temple to confront Izil. At first, Sarge is able to curb stomp her, but when it comes time to actually kill her, he can't bring himself to do it. May tries to talk to him, telling him that the pain holding him back is love, and it seems he might be coming around. And then he stabs Melinda May through the chest and tosses her through the portal like a piece of trash. He's not Coulson. He's not even Sarge anymore. He's Pachacutic, the Earthshaker Demon Lord. Izil may not be able to possess Yo-Yo anymore thanks to Fitzsimmons and Deke, but that protection doesn't extend to her pets. One of the Shrike flies right into Yo-Yo's mouth at the end of the episode. New life. We finally get to see Pachacutic's true form, and it's disgusting. It's a hulking insectoid with a face like a crustacean. He completely no-sells Daisy's powers, beating her and Mac into the ground. May manages to take a look into the fear dimension as she sees hundreds, if not thousands, of beings like Izil and Pachacutic ready to invade reality. There's a picture of it. And that's just how season 6 stops? Okay, I guess season 7 continues that, but what are these seasons? Is this why it got canceled? What are these what are these? The New Deal. The Chronocoms using a device that literally removes the faces of people, leaving blank swaths of flesh in their place, in order to create new disguises for themselves. Adapt or die. The Chronocoms reveal that they are replacing S.H.I.E.L.D. agents with Chronocom hunters, first by implanting their memories before stealing their faces. Once Coulson and May save Rick Stoner from the same fate, there's a shot of the bodies of 3 agents that the hunters replaced, all with blank faces and only their underclothing. Nathaniel goes about operating on Daisy the same way that Whitehall operated on Jia-Ying. Even if the relationship ended badly between her and her mother, she got a taste of the terror and pain Jia-Ying went through. Mac's parents had already been killed and replaced by Chronocoms, and they don't hold back with the evil gloating. They've been gone for a while. I harvested their skins. The totally excellent adventures of Mac and the D. The sheer amount of gruesome deaths inflicted by Sybil and her robots almost makes Ruby chopping off Elena's arms in Season 4 look tame by comparison. There's nothing for after before. There probably is supposed to be, but there isn't. As I have always been. Enoch's efficiency in taking down the team single-handedly, if you consider that he's a Chronocom anthropologist and the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents have fought as species hunters. Stolen. We finally get a good look at Daisy when she's not holding back her powers. It's almost reminiscent of a power-up scene from Dragon Ball Z, and it scares the hell out of Nathaniel despite him having a better degree of control than she does. Brand new day. When Sybil's fleet reaches Earth, they waste no time in annihilating nearly every S.H.I.E.L.D. base on the planet via orbital bombardment. And then the other 2 episodes don't have anything written either. So, I feel like there might have been some answers for what the hell seasons 5, 6, and 7 were, but the Nightmare Fuel decided to not write anything in the boxes for a few episodes. Even though they're here, so they probably did have some, they're just not there. And since this episode is almost 2 hours long, oh god, Agent Carter's in here too. We're gonna have to do another episode at some point. So, this has been Anashi Sasuke. This was, I guess, I think, episode 4. of, let's read the Nightmare Fuel for the MCU. I'm not touching Cloak and Dagger, because I feel like that doesn't count. I don't know. I'm not even sure if it's on the list. I'll have to check. Might as well check now. What are we working with? Marvel Television. Okay, got Agent Carter. Cloak and Dagger is in there. It's just all the way at the end. So we got Agent Carter, 2 seasons of Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Defenders, The Punisher, which I think also had 2 seasons, The Inhumans, The Runaways, and Cloak and Dagger. So maybe Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had an effect on the shows Inhumans, Runaway, and Cloak and Dagger, but Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, The Defenders, The Punisher were all Netflix shows that I'm not sure whether or not they matter in the grander scheme of things, other than Daredevil being caused by the fallout of the first Avengers movie. But anyway, outro. If you liked it, a like and subscribe would be groovy. If you didn't, you don't need to do either one of those things. If you want to click the bell, you can do that as well so that you're notified of future uploads, and I will see y'all in the next one. And probably the next one after that. Later.